Nothing in nature is self-activating. That means that clouds are formed by evaporation of water by the sun. Plants cannot grow unless there's sun, moisture, things of that sort. Man cannot grow unless he encounters experience. If he sees a porcupine and tries to pet it, or an animal, it gets stuck by the quills of the porcupine. Then when it sees a porcupine, it stays away. But before that, it cannot. So I'm telling you that all human beings have no degree of freedom, none. There's no such thing as free will. It's an extrapolation made by people. But if you study what makes a criminal, what makes aberrant behavior, you'll find that there are forces. When a man sees a lion come at him, he goes like that, tries to defend himself, he can't. The lion tears him to pieces. But somebody watching it might pick up a stick and try to keep, if the stick isn't big enough, it's not going to work. And they learn what size stick to pick up after time. Do you understand that?
Yep.
So whenever we choose, if you pick up a stick that's a root with the root ends on it, and you batter an animal, then you're more apt to succeed. So man, as I pointed out before, the first guy, I think I may have pointed out, that jumped off the Eiffel Tower with 3-foot wings on each side, he died. It was his brother-in-law that said make wings longer. That's why I say people never make mistakes. They don't know. You can't know how to make an airplane fly. Nobody knows what to do when it comes to something new. Edison said he made 7,000 filaments before he got one that didn't burn out. Now, all that may have taken years. There are some people that think that there are people that can really think. I talk about where inventions come from. They cannot come from the human mind. Something occurs in nature that triggers that. I'm going to give you the exact description. They said Nikola Tesla made the first wireless control without wires. Here's where he got it, okay? Now listen carefully. When you bought electric wire, did I discuss that with you already?
No.
They used to shove it in a bag. It was all tangled up. So they bought cardboard spools, and they wrapped it around the spool, and it was less tangled up. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Sometimes the wire was broken. So they used to check it out with 2 clips on both ends of the wire and run a current through it. And they had a little galvanometer that showed that it wasn't broken. All right. They did that for many years, and the companies that sold the wire were called electric companies when I was a kid. I'm just telling you what really happened. Now, if you bought fine wire, they wrapped around a small spool, meaning a hollow cardboard tube. They got that from the carpet companies. But if you happen to buy large wire and the small wire, and you shove the small wire, the guy that owned the store, instead of packaging the small wire and the large wire, he shoved the small coil inside the big one. And when they checked it for conductivity, it induced the current in the small wire, even though it wasn't connected. So the guy took the wire out, he was amazed, and he moved it slowly away. Now the further away it got, the weaker the current was. So he turned 2 ends of the wire up. Other people did the same thing. When you turn 2 ends of the wire, it acts like an antenna. So it moved further away. Now if you boost a little bit of current in it at a great distance, this can induce more. That's where the wireless came from. Nobody ever sat down and invented anything. Now I want to prove it. Did I discuss the Chinese motion picture?
No.
I spoke at Princeton University. They could not fill the one classroom, so they had to hold a meeting in the auditorium. Now I had more people than ever there. So before I said one word, the head of the optical department got up and said, "I don't agree with your premise." I said, "So I can't do anything with that. What is it that you disagree with?" "I think man can think of reason." I said, "Give me one example of man thinking or reasoning." Is that fair enough?
Mhm.
He said, "There are thousands of examples." I said, "Just give me one. I can't deal with thousands." So he said, "Well, somebody had to think of the camera. There was a time when there was no camera." So I told him this. If you go into a barn, you know what I mean by that? You don't understand my language, interrupt me.
Sure, yep.
And there's a knot hole. You know what a knot hole
Mhm.
is? Cows walking outside will appear on the wall upside down, walking. Did you know that?
Yep.
Now in the Holy Land, over 1,000 years ago, people lived in clay huts. If there happened to be just a little hole in it, people walking outside appeared upside down on the wall. And they used to call it the upside down world. It was 1,000 years ago. And you paid 2 pieces of silver to see the upside down world. Now that's where the box camera came from. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Now we go to the movie camera. Years ago, the Chinese made paper. It's called bamboo paper. I'm not too interested in the paper, but they bound it together.
Jacque,
Page,
you want that?
thank you. If it helps you, let me know. There's a picture of the Chinese paper, one behind the other. And I don't want to draw all the pages, but that's a bunch of pages, one behind the other.
Right.
And the Chinese used to bind it together like that. You understand? And they'd write the Chinese characters up and down. That's the way the Chinese lettering goes. But in order to know what page their own inscriptions were on, they made a mark in the corner of each page. Chinese characters. Some Chinamen, over many years, grabbed that pad and went, and that mark jumped all over the place. Do you understand? If you don't, you're supposed to interrupt me, not let me go on.
No, just go
A
on.
Chinese artist drew a bird in different positions, not stages, not smooth, one here, one there, and they drew it in the corner of the page, and he went, and you got that. You got water moving, a man walking. This is 1,500 years ago. Nobody sat down and invented motion pictures. Motion was discovered by, do you understand? Now, a Chinese carpenter liked that. So he took some wood, this is a dowel. You know what a dowel is? A round piece of wood,
okay.
like that. And he cut it with a handsaw, slots all around that dowel. And he put all the pictures so they looked like a paddle wheel. I hope you understand this drawing. It looked like a paddle wheel. And then when you put a crank on top and turn it, it's easier than... And he took more pictures and filled it with pictures, one in between the other, and more drawings. Sometimes the bird would fly and sometimes it stand still. Sometimes one wing appeared and it wasn't good. It took a long time for some Chinaman to put his finger in the way and stop each picture for the 1/10 of a second so the brain can pick it up. When you just turn it, the eye don't always pick up every picture, especially if you put a lot of them. Do you only use your hand and delay the picture? Then they put a piece of bamboo there, not the hand. So when you turn it, there was an interruption, and the bird flew very well. Then a Frenchman saw that in a Chinese museum. He machined it out of brass, ball bearings, real nice, put more pictures in it. Edison bought that from the Frenchman. And Edison put it in a box that looked like a big pencil sharpener. See, you guys are young compared to me. When I was a kid, there was a crank on this box, and there was an eyepiece here that looked like this. And you put a nickel in a slot, and you turn the crank. I don't know if you ever saw that. It was called a Nickelodeon. You put a nickel and you turn, and all the pictures went by in this position, not side position, because it's more efficient. And from that came the next move. The Chinese took paper and they cut this out with the Chinese scissors. This was cut out of paper. And it was called the Dancing Girl. This is how it looked. It was cut out of paper, laminated, glued together, and they painted it black. And they put that little statue on the table, this girl. And they put a screen behind her, bamboo paper, oiled, so it's semi-transparent. And they put it about 10 inches behind this girl. And they put a candle in front, about 10 inches away. As the candle flickered, the girl danced. If I just took this pencil, put a candle here, and cast a shadow, the candle flicks, the shadow will move up and back. If you put 3 candles there was 3 dancing girls. Can you understand? From one shadow. Nobody ever sat down and invented a movie screen. Not possible. The human brain can't do that. Everything starts with a little bit of something and gradually, over many years, becomes something. That's why man, being brought up as a baby doesn't suck on a woman's tits only. It sucks wherever there's skin. When it sucks on a tit, it gets food, and it goes for the tit. If a man sees shallow water with bubbling sand, he tries to cross, and it's quicksand. He sinks. The other guy that watches that said, don't go in that water with the bubbling sand. There is no other way. When you climb a hill, if you step on a severe incline, you slip. If you look for a slight flat, you get up the hill. So all of us, when we climb a hill, may not even know we're doing this. We look for the flats, and that gets us up a hill. I'm going to draw a caveman sitting in a cave. And this is a bad drawing of a caveman sitting in a cave. To get up that cave, he's got to step on the flats. Otherwise he won't get out, he'll slip. After he lives there 10 years, it gets to look like this. When he moves, he cuts out steps. But he doesn't know, I gotta make steps to get up this cave. The brain doesn't work that way. That's what I mean by man can't think or reason. He encounters a situation. In school they tell you that an animal has horns to defend itself. Like in the old days there was one called a triceratops. It's a dinosaur with 3 horns. So as a kid I thought, gee, that made sense, like most of us do. But then I said, where are the horns on a rabbit? A rabbit can sure use horns because it has nothing to defend itself with. It's just slow moving. Then I figured, gee, maybe, I don't know if you know much about a turtle, but a turtle, if it's on its back, it usually dies. The legs, it can't turn over. If a turtle were born with a long horn on the back like that, to say the purpose of that is so the turtle couldn't be put over on its back. Man projects his own values into everything. So they say we have eyes to see with. Now that makes sense to all normal people, which are completely fucked up. So whenever a scientist comes in my lab and says the purpose of eyes are to see, And I say, do you really believe that? He says, yeah. So I take him in a closet and close the door and say, see. He says, I can't see anything. Put the light on. So you have eyes and you see if there's light, but you don't have eyes to see with. They think you have ears to hear with. No, you have ears and you hear. Some animals' ears turn in different directions toward the sound. There is no purpose to life. That's a hard thing to accept. People, ego, think that Fresco is here to help make the world a better place. Well, that's pleasing to me, but I don't buy that shit. I know that nature has no purpose, meaning people think nature has a purpose. When a hurricane comes, it doesn't move over a bus full of nuns or around the church and then continue. It blows the church away and everything else. If you're born with a better brain than him, say the tissue is better quality, the neural processes are better built. If you live in Nazi Germany, you become a Nazi faster. Even if your brain is better. The brain has no mechanism for knowing that which is relevant or less relevant. So, if you can't hear too well, if you do this, make your ear a little bigger area, you can hear better. So in the old days, they took megaphones and they put it in the guy's ear, and it would look like a phonograph, thicker than the guy held it. And so, no person ever thinks of anything. Now the same with aviation. Man saw a bird fly, and he made wings and ran, and he didn't get off the ground. And a lot of people died. I mean, thousands of them before the Wright brothers. You'd think the Wright brothers, from their bicycle shop, made an airplane? No. There were guys in France that tried to fly. 50 years, the Chinese, 800 years ago, had men carrying kites. They didn't really fly, but they were hanging on to big kites. You understand? All of that suggested the direction. You've seen these balloons that fly with people in it, a balloon and a basket with people in the basket? Okay. Here's where that came from. They used to take shirts, which they wash, and put them in the fireplace to kind of dry them, not above the fireplace. And the wet shirt would seal the pores and go up this chimney and go flying away. Mm-hmm. That's where they got the hot air balloon. The Arabs invented the battery before that. Here's how they invented it. If you put a battery or acid in a metal container, it rotted away. So they put it in clay, and it didn't rot away. So they used to sell the acid, and they put a unit that looked like a spoon in there. And they put another unit that looked like a spoon. This is accidental. And one spoon coated the other. It crossed the acid and plated the other. You can go up the jungles of the Orinoco River and talk to some of the natives, say, you can have anything you want. He doesn't say, I'd like a twin-engine Beechcraft or a stainless steel refrigerator. He can't say that. Do you understand that? So if you go over to an American Indian and say, look, I'm here to give you anything you want. They'll say, I'd like a Jaguar, brand new, with lacquer coating, 21 coats of lacquer. He can't say that. Do you understand? That's what I mean by man cannot make a choice except within that of his culture. We don't have free will, that means. Whatever you choose to join is because of your background. You were socially aware when you were younger. How did you get that? Maybe a cop beat up your father, or you saw people exploited, or you saw young kids working in factories. I mean, 10 years old. They're working Saturday, Sunday, 12 hours a day, no day off. And women that like children march to free children from child labor factories. and they had rotten eggs thrown at them, nobody said, all right, we're taking the children out of the factory. It took long marches and big groups of women marching for that. Every step into the future was fought, every inch of the way. Man will never fly. Even the scientists used to write books on why man can't fly. If they were scientists, they would write this way: I can't see how man can possibly fly. I don't even know how to think of a flying machine. That's the truth. When you say you think man will ever get to the moon, this is years ago. The average person, thousands of years from now. No, that's impossible. You think the guy studied rockets and space science? No, he just had an opinion. So when you give everybody a right to their own opinion, you hurt society. If your sister lived across the street from me, and I see 10 guys coming out of her apartment, I can have all kinds of opinions. She could be a language instructor, ballet instructor. The best thing for me to say is, I don't know. I said, well, what do you think's going on then? I don't know. You think she's a whore? I don't know. That's the answer. So when a person says, you think we'll have peace on earth and goodwill? I don't know how to attain it, you can say. I don't know. There'll always be wars and rumors of wars. You'll always have the poor amongst you. It says that in the Bible. Naturally, if I accepted that shit, I wouldn't be working on stuff like that. So the Bible is a bad instrument. It holds people back. A woman was making some hot water over a flame, and she put the cover, didn't fit the container, so she put it down in there, and as they boiled the water, the cover went up. That's where the piston came from. Nobody said, I've got to make a twin-cylinder engine. Did you ever see this gadget? It's a seed and a thin leaf off like this. It falls from a tree and gyrates down to the ground. You ever see that? Yep. They used to call them pollywogs when I was a kid, or maple seeds. They gyrate down to the ground. Nobody ever made a propeller. Another guy told me he was a pilot in World War I. He was shot down over France. I said, what kind of plane did you fly? He says, a Spad. I said, what were the instrument panels like? Never got any answers. So when people tell you they were formerly kings, what did your ship pot look like when you were a queen in ancient Rome? They don't know. They don't know what their cones looked like. What were the plates made of that you ate? And what were the buildings like? They don't know. So do use the thing. That's what science means. Check it out. So when they say Fresco is a dictator, he makes all the decisions. You have to tell him he doesn't make any decision. First thing we do is a survey. How much land do you have? Arable. How much water do you have? That tells us how big a city you can build. If you build a city far in excess of what the land can supply, it won't work. That's called a scientific method. If a guy mixes different kinds of metals together, just to see how strong it gets, he doesn't know, and he mixes iron and cobalt and tungsten together to see if he can make a metal that doesn't twist when you grab it, or doesn't bend easily. They don't know, so they mix these different things together. They're called metallurgists. They don't know. And when they mix it together, this guy mixed nickel and titanium together just to make a stronger metal. And when he bent it, he left it on a table near a heat lamp, and it straightened out again. That's where the memory metals came from. Nobody says they're going to make metal with memory. You can't do that. So when I say man doesn't have free will, well listen, so you hold up 5 radios, I pick the one I want. He knows something about the speaker system. He may know a certain radio made by GE has better sound than others. So all your judgments, whether you get a horse and buggy for an ambulance or a motor vehicle that travels 30 miles an hour and your father gets a heart attack, you want that faster vehicle. So your choices are based on the ever-changing society. The Kennedy rocker is a rocking chair with a straight back and straight thing, and it's got 2 legs and a rocker like that. That's very bad to sit in anatomically. The guy that designed that either is an asshole or he doesn't know that the human body has a negative curve here, and it has a spinal curve like that. So when you sit in it, you can sit in it a longer time because it's shaped like your ass. If you make it straight, it's going to hurt you. Restaurants try to make it straight so you won't hang out too long. Everything has a history. So when man changed, they say, well, I've changed my mind. I wanted to do films on this. 2 farmers walking down the road. One of them says to the other, you hear about them Wright brothers trying to build a flying machine? The guy laughs, he spits. He says, if the good Lord wanted man to fly, he'd have been born with wings. Well, if the good Lord wanted you to wear clothing, you'd have been born with a suit. If he wanted you to live in a house, you'd have been born in a house. So all that stupid stuff. Nobody's born with a hat. It's part of your culture. Sun beats on your head, and you go like that, or you carry a leaf. When it rains, the bigger the leaf, the less wet. Then a guy designs a stick with a leaf on top, and you hold it. Then the wind blows the top off, so he makes it round very slowly. This doesn't happen overnight. So all invention is based on pain and experience.